The top questions I get asked as a homesteader is I don't have 12 acres to grow on. I've only lived in the city. I have less than an acre. I have homeowners associations and I have subdivisions and all of those amazing, crazy rules. Well, I brought in somebody to help us with that. His name is Mark Boyd. Mark Boyd is a 6 decade, a lifer, if you will, homesteader. And he's here to break down for us about living on a homestead inside the city. Mark Boyd grows everything on 1/20th of an acre for his homestead, and he grows everything to sustain him, his wife, and those around him. And he lives just outside of Metro Atlanta. So, a great person to have this conversation with. So, if you have any questions, you have any advice, again, this is the top content that people are asking for when they're commenting on our page. Help people, give them advice. How are you going around homeowners association? If you're having a question specifically that you want answered by Mark, don't worry. Our 7th episode is going to be a live Q&A with Mark Boyd, as he's going to break down every question that is asked here in the comment section. So please leave your comments down below. But for now, let's get to the conversation and let's have a great time learning about how Mark Boyd grows inside the city with a homeowners association in Metro Atlanta. So you're homesteading inside of the city. Again, you live in a homeowners association. How has that been? Has there been any kickback? Like, being honest, I mean, let's talk about it. Has there been much kickback?
Well, because of the topography of my lot and the size of the house that I live in, which isn't a real big house, but it's a 2-story house if you look at it from street level, but because it has a finished basement or a complete basement in the bottom of it, it's actually a 3-story house on the back side. And the house shields where my garden is located. So most of the people in the homeowners association are not even aware that I have a garden spot back there. Some of the things that we may talk about in this have enabled me to plant. I love flowers. My mom loved flowers. I used to, especially as she got older in age and before she passed away, I would go down and help her to, have the flower beds and all the things that she enjoys. I've raised my wife, my daughter, my granddaughters especially to like flowers. So my yard, in fact, one of the assessors for the county tax, I was kind of appealing an increase in property values, which we experienced in our whole part of the state. But I was talking to the gentleman. He was kind enough to come out to the house because I was trying to get an understanding. You say my house has increased this many thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
but I didn't do anything. I didn't repair anything. And, it's almost to the point, if the county will pay for that, I'll just sell you the house. Give me a couple of weeks to get out. You can have it. But in the course of doing that, he was a great guy. He explained to me that my house was being used. I'm not sure that I want my neighbors to know this, but my house was so, the flowers in the front yard was so landscaped and beautiful and that kind of thing. They were using it as the comparative for the other houses in our part of the county. And so while that was a little bit, well, I appreciate that. That's awesome that you would think that. So I do a little bit in the front yard that maybe captures their attention, and because of the topography, they don't really see the garden that's in the back that is kept growing
Yeah.
and changing and developing and that kind of thing. And then, because technically there is a provision in the bylaws of the Homeowners Association that frowns, if not prevents, gardening. But there's a lot of elderly people in my neighborhood, in my subdivision around me. And a lot of them used to love homegrown stuff and vegetables. They live on limited income, poor health. They're unable to do it themselves. And I didn't do it for this reason. Don't misunderstand me. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to go over and see if they'd like a homegrown tomato, some homegrown squash or a cucumber or something. And so I started giving out vegetables along.
I think
as I
that's
had extra, and
I think that's a
supplied
good,
that,
it's a kind of a good way to get your neighbor involved.
Well, it is.
And kind of get them to almost pass off on it. Don't snitch on me. I'll give you a couple tomatoes here and there. It also helps, I think, that you've got neighbors that secretly have done it as well.
Some of them use small greenhouses to do it.
Yeah. And so they kind of have theirs a little camouflaged in the back. They have like these, they have raised garden beds, but they're using like little mini greenhouses that are like dark green in tint in their lining. So it kind of, blends in with the woods that are back there, which is very smart. I think there's so much you can do. People get so stuck on the homesteader or the homeowners association that most people don't realize, one, people can't really see in your backyard. And again, if you're doing it right, I don't think you should go and rip up though I think you should, I don't think you necessarily have to go and rip up your entire front yard and turn that into crop rows. But I think it's about utilizing the space that you have, the raised garden beds, the space that you do have. How can you make that an elegantly beautiful space?
Right.
And I think there's different things that you've done that I think are really, really good. Like one of the first things that I saw was you were incorporating vegetables into the landscape, which was a great low-key way, and you got away with it for a couple of years.
Well, I still do it.
I still do it. Because from the row, because you're
if you're not familiar with heirloom seeds, their website I think is rareseeds.com or something like that. It's Baker Heirloom. They have a variety of little peppers. They're called pickle peppers, but they really almost look like one of those designs. What do they call them? Where you use fruit and you make a flower arrangement with it.
Oh yeah, the edible arrangements.
Edible arrangements.
Yeah.
There's different color peppers come on the same plant, and they're small plants. But if you stack several of those, they from the road. Oh my goodness! Look at that beautiful bouquet. And then you just put some other flowers in front of it, and
AKA pollinators.
Yeah. And so I have those evergreen cherry tomatoes that actually are perennials. As they drop, if you don't eat them all, and they are delicious. They're little tiny, about the size of the end of your finger. They come out really red. They look like ketchup in a plant ball, and they kind of taste that way. But those plants will run like 20, 25 feet, and they come back every year and they grow. And I was thinking, I have this island out in my front yard, pretty good size island, and I'm always putting down straw and mulch and doing weed control and all of that. So little by little, I've been putting in hostas and other things to make it more decorative, some hanging baskets and that kind of thing. My latest adventure this year was I took and used a canvas raised bed, bag that I already had.
Yeah.
And I filled it up with awesome dirt and stuff, and I put me in 2 of those evergreen tomatoes.
Yeah.
Vines. Now they didn't go more than probably 4 feet maybe high, because I built them a trellis in there, but they probably ran out about 4 feet from it, but they'll be back. And little by little, you can see video out on YouTube where they grow in the Everglades down in Florida and the swamp areas. So they're used to a harsh environment, and they continue to produce.
It's like a ground cherry, right?
It's almost like a ground cherry.
Okay.
But they're perennials. They'll keep coming back. So I do little things like that. I stash it in among the flowers, the beautiful flowers. It serves, like you said, the flowers are pollinators. And one of my big adventures on one side of my house, I have the drive going down toward the garage and that kind of thing. And it's a hill. And I have not been able to get anything to consistently grow on that hill in 25 years.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, why don't I try this wildflower garden mix that has flowers of all height and all beauty and all flavors and all this kind of size. And so that stretch is about maybe 12 feet, 15 feet long. It's not that big. And so I just put down some real good soil, put in some pavers on one side, enough to keep the soil from going down the hill when it rained or when it was watered. And I planted that. It has become one of the showpiece in the community. They
Yeah.
all come by to see. But what a great pollinator! I can get anything pollinated because they come. Still plant some flowers now out in the garden behind the house for that very same reason. But my butterflies and bees and wasp and what do you call those little birds?
The hummingbirds.
Hummingbirds. They keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. And these things got up. My wife is kind of short. She's probably 5'4", 5'6", something like that. And some of the tallest of those wildflowers are at least 6 feet.
Yeah.
And she figured out how to get off of Amazon. It's kind of like a plastic rod that you can put sections together, and then she took and just put something on there to help them support, so they didn't collapse. And so we've had these wonderful wildflowers growing on one side, and I stashed some vegetables because everybody's so attracted to the wildflowers. Why would they look at those little tomatoes planted in the planters right there, right beside them?
Right.
And so they provide little cherry tomatoes and that kind of thing. And these are the dwarf kind. So I do some things like that.
Okay.
One of the things that I think that might be helpful, you could, as you drive into our subdivision, if you look closely and carefully at the right moment, you can see somewhat into my backyard. But I took a white piece of lattice board. It's just a vinyl lattice board. Put it up with two 4x4s, and then of course put a brace across it and that kind of thing. Built a bed out in front, and actually there's a little bit of a bed back behind it, raised bed. And then I put 3 tomatoes. I think those were Arkansas Travelers, spaced out. And then I planted those purple pole beans that climb up that trellis. That provides me the greenery, but also gives me some purple flowers. And then the tomatoes, they also will have blooms, and they provide a different color green against that background of those purple beans. And then in between them, you always ought to plant marigolds with your tomatoes and sweet basil. And so I just kind of intermix those in between the tomatoes. But when people look, they see that type of thing. And then the other part where you could see into my backyard, there's a Thai elephant plant that the leaves, when it's fully grown, the leaves are almost, I don't know, those things must be 5 feet tall.
5, 6 feet, they're taller than me.
And they're probably 4 or 5 feet wide. And so I've got a big established area where the Thai elephant ears, and everybody who comes by marvels at the size and the greenery.
I have never seen elephant ears plants that big.
They also draw attention, so people don't really look to see. I wonder what that is on that lattice board.
What is that covering up?
That lattice? What's behind that lattice board? And I'll go ahead and give you another hint. I discovered really by, I guess, divine revelation. I don't know. I suddenly realized that part of my project, he said we were going to talk about a thing I've tried that's been real successful. I found out those Thai elephant ears, those leaves, are worth their weight in money, honey.
Yeah.
And growing a garden in a way that I had never thought about, because I've had them now for several years. And so, but anyway, I have the Thai elephant ears in, in 2 places. I have them in big raised pots and containers. Again, they kind of set the stage. I've got another one planted in that island I was telling you about. And so you put them different places, it kind of distracts from them being real inquisitive. Now, my neighbors on both sides and across the street, hey, they got to know, they know those tomatoes are coming from somewhere. The squash, the things I give away, who cares? I'm not bothering them and their neighbors, and it's not taking away, it's not in any way seen.
I think since COVID, I think people are a little bit more apt to kind of look the other way when it comes to homesteading. He's from the south part of, people would call that almost Atlanta, but it's really Coweta County and Noonan. We're from just south of Jackson, Mississippi, and it's still kind of I don't want to say conservative necessarily as I say like, Republican or Democrat, but I mean that in a way that here in the South, there still is a culture of self-sufficiency
Right.
that I really enjoy. Like here on my property, like people across the street from me, over to my right, and behind me, these are all properties that are being used to make food. So the people before me here, they had cows and they had a whole homestead as well. So what's great is like, I believe in the South, there's still kind of a culture, a little bit of kind of looking the other way. Not every subdivision's the same, obviously.
Yeah.
We lived in Summer Grove. We got in trouble for having topsy-turvy gardens coming down from our back deck. We did it the first 2 years we were there, and then all it took was one snitch, and then, I'm getting letters in my box. And again, each one's going to be different. I think what you do though is you also utilize that little space that you have. You have a good sized lot, but you're nowhere near using that entire lot. You're really compacting in. We did an episode a couple weeks ago. If you haven't checked it out, I'm going to put it in the show notes so you can click right here. In that we talked about less is more. And I think your homestead is a prime example of when you do less, you get more.
Mark Boyd is a wealth of knowledge. I'm super excited to be able to call him my dad. And it's amazing what you can learn from the generation in front of you when it comes to your homestead. If you're like Jonathan, I want to hear the entire conversation. I'm all in. I want to hear it all. Don't worry. You can click on this link over here. It's going to give you the entire conversation that Mark and I had about homesteading inside of the city. If you're ready to skip ahead and go on to the next episode, don't worry. Click for that will be right over here, and you'll be able to go on into the next conversation. It kind of breaks it down context by context, because over that course of an hour and a half, we hit probably 20 topics. This next episode is specifically on planning on gardening inside of the city and what you need to look out for. So again, a great conversation with an amazing lifetime homesteader. We look forward to seeing you over there inside of that conversation. If you've not had a chance yet, real quick, you have 2 ways to connect with us. First one is through our website. If you click on the links down below, you can go over and sign up for our mailing list. There you get an amazing email once a week, and we break down what's going on here on the homestead. It's a great behind the scenes look as to what's going on the homestead. Also, we have a cool Reddit page that we've just started up. Got all of our links for all of our episodes there. But there, we're going to start building an amazing community of homesteaders. And it is a completely free resource. And so we're not going to be running a Patreon where we're charging people. We want a community of people that are there to learn and get better together. So if that interests you, make sure you go over to Reddit, find Homesteading Chef, and join our community there. As for now, again, click on our 2 links here, kind of a choose your own journey, if you will. And we look forward to seeing you next time. You be blessed and have a great week.